We all have some loose paper with paintings, some postcards, or maybe movie tickets around that we'd rather organize, maybe in a little book. Today, I'll show you 2 ways on how to do just that. I'll bind my postcard collection into a small book, and I'll create a sketchbook out of loose sheets of paper. Most of the materials you need can be found in your home, but the one thing you need that can't be substituted is PVA glue. Chances are you already have PVA glue. Most white glue is PVA, but most times, as in my case, it isn't explicitly stated on the container. I have white glue from Collal, and upon searching I found the data sheet. It's already stated in the description and then again as a main ingredient. Once you determine that you have PVA at home, we can begin. If you don't have it, I'll link it in my Amazon shop as well, and that's where you'll find most of my materials and equipment. The first step is to prepare what will be inside your book. For me, it's these lovely postcards. Some of them are from my mom, my sister, some I bought myself as mementos to exhibitions. You'll notice that the postcards have different sizes, just like your painting sheets would have different paper sizes. That's no problem as long as we are careful to have at least one side where all the paper edges meet. We want to apply pressure to keep the paper in place while we glue said side. You can use clamps like me if you have them. You can also place the paper between stacks of books and only let the part show where we apply the glue. You could also use clothespins, but make sure to place a protective sheet of fabric or paper between them and the book to reduce indents. What we are working on now is called our book block. I'm moving the clamps around carefully to have good access. Depending on your glue container, you can apply the glue directly from the tube or with an old paintbrush. Just make sure to wash it immediately afterwards. I am using surface tension to make sure the glue doesn't run over the edges. PVA dries quickly, but mistakes can easily be corrected with a piece of damp paper towel. After the glue is applied, I carefully dab it into the creases, and then we want to let it dry. I usually dry it upright and use either books on each side to support it, or sometimes, like today, it fits perfectly into the back of my easel. You'll get creative, I'm sure of it. I let mine dry for 45 minutes and will show you how to bind single sheets into a sketchbook while we wait. I have black Ingress Hahnemühle paper because this should be for pastels, either oil or dry. I'll also place this glassine paper in between each page to reduce smudging. These are scrap pieces I have left over from making sketchbooks, which is why I'll have to cut them to size. Be careful if you only have plastic rulers. I'd recommend using a straight edge you can't easily cut into, such as a piece of carton or the side of a wooden cutting board. I'm using a metal ruler. And if your cutter isn't sharp enough, don't forget you can most times snap off the first segment of your blade, press it down in a thick layer of paper, such as a newspaper, and press down alongside the indent. It'll snap right off and the new edge will be sharp. I'll alternate between paper and glassine and repeat the steps from the first postcard book block. And while this one dries, we'll work on the covers of our little books. We need some carton for our front and back of the cover, and the size of it will vary for you, but the main formula is this. Measure the width of your book block. If your pages are uneven, take the widest measurement. Now add 3 millimeters or 1/8 of an inch. Measure the height and add twice that, 6 millimeters or 1/4 of an inch. If you're anything like me, write it down or you'll immediately forget. That's the size of your front and back cover. Please also measure the thickness of your book block where we applied the glue. This is called the spine. To create the covers, we need a piece of carton and some cover paper. The carton I'm using is a cereal box. You can vary the thickness of the carton in proportion to your book block. The larger and thicker your book block, the larger and thicker your carton should be. For my small book, it shouldn't be thicker than 1/8 of an inch or 3 millimeters. On top of one piece for the front and one piece for the back, we also need a small stripe for the spine. Take the measurement you just took and cut out a strip of carton with the height of your book block and the thickness of your spine. I have this adorable beige brown cover paper with maps and this black and white one with a botanical pattern. If you don't have a cover paper, don't worry, you can paint on your book cover with acrylics, you can collage it, embroider something, or get creative in another way. No matter how big your cover sheet is, you want an all-around border of 2.5 centimeters or 1 inch for your cover paper. We will now glue the carton onto our cover paper, and for this step, we don't necessarily need the PVA. For me, it's quicker to work with a simple glue stick. The cereal box carton might show through the light colored paper, which is why I'll make sure to glue down the brown unicolor side. Now we want to apply pressure. You can use a spoon, a wooden spatula, a roller, or a bone folder. Just make sure the adhesive sticks to all the materials we want to connect. In a moment, we will fold over the overlap of the cover paper. And for that, we trim some of the edges in a 45-degree angle. You can use a triangle ruler for this. Just make sure you leave a bit of space at the edge for the paper to wrap around it. Otherwise, your little edge will show. It's much easier with scissors. Don't ask me why I'm using a cutter. I don't know, but apparently it works as well. Apply glue on the paper and fold it over. Apply pressure and repeat this with the second cover sheet. Of course, this cereal box shouldn't show through. I'm using light brown paper to cover it up. White printing paper is fine as well if you don't have colored paper, but white paper might not cover it up with only the one layer. Try and double it up if that's the case. A little pro tip, mark the size of the paper and then fold it along the edges. It'll be a perfect rectangle without measuring or drawing any lines. We will experience some warp in the paper. That's normal. Let it dry under the pressure of a few heavy books. I repeated this for the second cover off camera. It's the same process. Now we need to attach the book block and the covers somehow. We do so by using a strip of paper or tape for our book block's spine. In width, it should be 4 to 5 centimeters plus your spine width, or almost 2 inches plus the spine width. In height, there should be 2.5 centimeters or 1 inch towards each the top and the bottom. This way, there is enough overlap to attach the front and back cover securely. For the first book, I am using paper. For the second book, I'll use tape. I'd use washi tape and layer it until it has the desired width, but I don't like the designs with the black and white cover paper. I only have green washi tape somehow. I therefore use a special bookbinding tape. Glue the small strip of carton in the center. 2 things are important now. First off, double check your cover paper's alignment if you have a continuing motif on there. Decide on which one should be the front and which one the back. Secondly, leave a small gap between the center carton strip and the front and back cover to each side. This gap should be just as wide as your carton is thick. In my case, it's 2 millimeters. And this way the carton has enough room to move when you open and close your book. Otherwise, carton would rub against carton and damage over time. Now we fold the excess paper over and apply pressure. We also carefully indent the gap to help our book cover close. I repeat the process for the black and white sketchbook. I did, unfortunately, glue down the wrong side of the cereal carton. It's showing through, which is why I layered a second strip of tape on top as well as a small strip inside, and now it's fine. Before we attach the book block in the book cover, we reinforce the spines. For now, the only thing holding this together is this one layer of PVA glue. Ideally, we need a thin piece of fabric. It can be an old tea towel or part of a bed sheet, as long as it's natural fibers such as cotton and it's thin enough to see your fingers through it. It should work. Make sure to have some overlap on each side, and if you don't have a piece of fabric, no worries, just apply a second layer of PVA glue. I let this dry while grabbing lunch, so again, 45 to 60 minutes. I'll now show you 2 different ways to attach your book blocks. First, the uneven edged postcards. I cut off the overlap of the front, but leave it in the back. We apply PVA under the fabric, on top of the fabric, and over the full end page of our book block. We carefully place it down. There should be a 3mm or 1/8 of an inch gap between our book block and the top, the bottom, and the front of the cover. We gently press down, close the book, and place something heavy on top. This method will allow us to open the book fully and flip through our mementos. Only the back page is attached and the cover will lay flat. The second technique is more reminiscent of a typical hardbound book. We apply glue on the book block spine and on the fabric strips on the front and back. We carefully place the book block inside and again check for our 3mm gap to each side. We close the book and place it under something heavy. This will not allow us to open the book fully flat, but it is the typical way of binding a sketchbook, and a small part of the first and the last sheet is glued to the covers, which secures the book block further in the cover. We also have access to the very last page because we didn't have to glue it down, unlike with the first binding method. I hope this gave you some ideas on what to do with your loose paintings, your postcards, or other mementos you'd like to keep in a more organized form. I always love to hear from you. Also, if you have questions, I read every single comment, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye!